fun begins.
How's it going?
Hello.
Well,
Greetings, young Jedi.
hello there.
What's up, everyone? Hybrid Toy Reviews here, and welcome back to the next episode of Black Series of Yesteryear. This is the series where I look back at old waves of Black Series and give my thoughts as a collector who's been in the game since these figures were on shelves. Today we are taking a look at the second wave of the Blue line. This came out in mid to late 2014 and featured 4 figures, one of which being a repack of bizarre choice, but we are going to start running through these in the box order because the characters are numbered. The first one in this wave, Blue Line number 5, is the Imperial TIE Fighter pilot. And I gotta say, this guy is pretty cool. He's a figure that has not been updated to date, and they have issued him as recent as 2020, if memory serves. They put him on the Empire Strikes Back retro card for the 40th anniversary, and then they carbonized him in 2023, so they made him blue and shiny for whatever reason. But this sculpt, I gotta say, while dated, while featuring the double pin knees, objectively does look pretty good. This was a really interesting choice from Hasbro. You know, we had gotten the Stormtrooper and a couple of Sand Troopers. They weren't afraid of the Imperials, but this was the first departure of just not being a white trooper anymore. And it was really cool. It was a figure that I really, really wanted to track down. And I did. I remember the day that I found this. The interesting thing with this wave was this was actually the era of Walgreens. So, there was a time where Walgreens was actually the best way to go hunt in person and find some Black Series figures. They would rarely have an entire wave on the case because typically at their distribution centers, they would break apart the wave and then send 1 or 2 figures to a store. They would rarely get the whole Hasbro box. So if you were hunting, you had to find several Walgreens. And I, at the time, lived in Central Florida. And the thing about Florida is there's a Walgreens on every street corner. They're kind of like Dollar General like that. So I was able to find this wave entirely at Walgreens back in the day. But I remember walking into a Walgreens near my grandparents' house, seeing it on the shelf, and immediately the goods were secured. And it's a figure that, while they've not updated him to date, I'm not chomping at the bit for a new one. I know that modern Hasbro absolutely would make a better version, but this figure has actually aged fairly well, so I just think that there's better things that they could be redoing than this. And I honestly think if you would like to add a TIE Fighter pilot to your collection, picking up any of the reissues of this from over the years would be a worthy addition to your shelf. Moving on to Blue Line number 6, we have Yoda. And I really have to give them props on this Yoda. While he was definitely a little bit large, and while he had a little bit of crazy eyes going on, they realized that he was a small character, as Yoda is. He is not 6 foot tall. And so they elected to try and give us a little bit more. This is, of course, an original trilogy Yoda based on his appearance on Dagobah and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I really like the inclusion of the tan and orange snake. That is a reference to the Kenner figure all the way back from 1980, and it's just his hut had a little snake slithering in one scene, and the Kenner figure came with the snake for whatever reason, and so they included the snake here as a little homage to Yesteryear. And it's just an interesting accessory, so that was really cool. And then, of course, Yoda comes with his walking stick, as he is over 900 years old. Still looking rather good, in my opinion. And then he comes with his lightsaber, which is a prequel accessory. However, I consider it rather based of Hasbro. to give us the Yoda lightsaber accessory. I actually had this Yoda on my shelf until recently as my prequel trilogy Yoda. I just took the belt off, I let the robes hang open, and I had the lightsaber in his hand, and it was a good enough fill-in until I finally tracked down a Yoda and Gree Clones of the Republic 2-pack, and while this guy does skew a little large, he's a little bigger than true scale. He had some pretty good articulation for his size, and I remember this figure fondly. While it's not the perfect representation of Yoda in the Black Series, it's just what we had for a long time, and I still like it. So I think for the era, it was a pretty good figure. In spot number 7, we have the Clone Trooper Sergeant. This was Hasbro starting off like an 8-year mission to make 4 Clone Trooper repaints. And some of these happened really quick, but then, of course, the blue one took forever. But the Clone Trooper Sergeant is the green striped ranked Clone Trooper from the Battle of Geonosis. Of course, we have the Captain in red. I believe the Lieutenant is the blue one, and does that mean the yellow is a commander, I believe is correct. So the Clone Trooper Sergeant is a repaint of the Orange Line White Clone Trooper with some green stripes and then a couple of dots on the chest. It was really exciting to get back in the day. It was just fun to get a clone that wasn't a white clone. I have been a Black Series cloner from day one. However, as I said in the Orange Line Wave 4 video, there were frustrations with the sculpt right off rip, and it definitely just was a frustrating thing to have back in the day. I ultimately would like to see this guy get redone. Now that we have the 2023 clone sculpt, it's much more posable, it just looks better, it has the removable helmet. I would really like to see all of the ranks get redone on it. But I remember finding this one, all 3 of these so far, were Walgreens finds, and I just remember finding it. I remember that time fondly, and I remember being satisfied with them at the time. Of course, that satisfaction has fallen off over the years. And then, in Blue Line number 8, someone at Hasbro woke up in the morning and drank a great big giant tall glass of stupid juice and went to work and said, "Hey, that Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan that's not very good, that you can go to any Walmart in the country and grab 10 of off the shelf. Let's repack him!" And they did it, and they put him in the blue line, and they changed absolutely nothing about the figure. His articulation was still dog water. The face was still atrocious, and the head sculpt small at that. This figure I remember getting the Orange Line one back in the day, and then seeing this Blue Line one everywhere. It was interesting. You could go to Walmart and find 2 variations of the same figure, peg warming. The orange one, the blue one, it didn't matter. They were interchangeable. Same figure, and it was just incredible seeing them make such an insanely dumb choice. This was definitely the first blunder of the Black Series. I'm not gonna knock a figure sculpt too horribly for being a product of the 2013, 14, 15 era. Like, that's just how action figures were back in the day. I'm not gonna knock the articulation to any unreasonable extreme, but this figure just wasn't very good even at the time it came out, and it was peg warming. I mean, how did Hasbro not know that this guy wasn't moving? Surely Hasbro employees, go to Walmart for their groceries or something, surely they were just like, oh hey, I wonder what's in the toy aisle. Surely they knew that, when you went to Walmart, your only options for Black Series figures were Obi-Wan Kenobi, Slave Leia, Han Solo, and Greedo. They were just pegs deep of those guys. And they said, hey, want to see me do it again? So yeah, this is just a bizarre repack, and probably the most confusing blunder of the entire Blue Line era, I gotta say. But with that does conclude Wave 2 of the Blue Line, and I gotta say, it was 75% a success. I really do like the 3 prior figures before the Obi-Wan. And while some of them are definitely showing their age, and we've had redos of Yoda, and I would like to get a redo of the Clone Sergeant and the TIE Pilot, I would like to see a redo, but I think it still holds up. For the time and for what was coming out, these were very fun figures, and I was definitely happy when I found them at my varying local Walgreens. So I gotta say, Wave 2 of the blue line, maybe not as successful as Wave 1 with the Sandtrooper Vader, Luke, and Chewbacca, but it's a very good wave all the same, and these are some figures that are just permanently ingrained in my memory. So that is it for this episode. Thank you for listening to me yap for about 10 minutes. Were you collecting back in the day? Do you have any of these figures? Did you have any of these figures? What are your thoughts? Let's yap about it in the comments down below. Thanks for hanging out. May the Force be with each and every one of you, and I hope you all have a great day.